This guy, Avi Loeb, he's a professor at Harvard that believes it might be an alien probe.
They told us it was just a rock, just another icy fragment drifting in from the far reaches of space. But now, evidence is piling up that 3I Atlas might not be a comet at all. And according to one Harvard scientist, its anomalies are so extreme they may reveal alien technology hiding in plain sight, right above our heads. Scientists confirm 3I Atlas is not a comet, hidden alien tech exposed. This is serious science colliding with shocking possibilities, the kind that forces you to question whether humanity is really alone in the universe, or whether we've already been visited. And if you think that sounds like a reach, wait until you hear the bombshell claim this Manhattan-sized object is on a trajectory that some say looks designed, not random. In fact, one leading astrophysicist compared it to having a car barreling down the street toward you with a 40% chance of impact. Not a maybe, a threat, a technological intruder lurking in our skies. And if that wasn't enough to shake you, what if I told you that according to multiple telescopes and hundreds of observations, 3I Atlas is far too massive to be natural? That its composition includes nickel without iron, a ratio never before seen in comets, but one strikingly similar to industrial alloys produced by intelligent beings. These details aren't coming from some anonymous message board. They're coming from data, hard numbers, and respected voices in astrophysics. And yet, the mainstream space agencies keep waving it away. They keep repeating the line, it's just a comet. But tonight, we're not letting them bury this story. Tonight, we follow the evidence, because there's a reason people are calling this the alien probe no one wants to admit exists.
At like 130,000 miles an hour.
No, that might solve all our problems.
This guy, Avi Loeb, he's a professor at Harvard that believes it might be an alien probe, and that this object is in a direct line to come to Earth in 2027.
That was from the Joe Rogan Experience. Think about what was just said. Direct line, alien probe, Earth 2027. So let's slow down. How did we get here? How did a comet turn into a potential extraterrestrial reconnaissance mission? The story begins with a discovery that should have been routine. Astronomers flagged a fast-moving body cutting across the sky, catalogued as 3I Atlas. I, because it was only the third known interstellar object to ever pass through our solar system, after Oumuamua in 2017 and Borisov in 2019. Already that made it historic, but what unfolded next left even seasoned astronomers stunned. Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb, one of the most controversial figures in modern astronomy, quickly realized the data didn't add up. For one thing, the object was staggeringly massive. Based on observations from the James Webb Space Telescope, the Hubble, and over 227 ground observatories, the object's minimum mass was calculated at 33 billion tons, with a possible diameter stretching up to 46 kilometers. To put that in perspective, Oumuamua, the first interstellar visitor, was the size of a football field. It's the size of Manhattan Island. Now here's the kicker. Statistically, the odds of detecting something this big should be so low, you'd expect to wait 10,000 years or more before one even drifted close enough to be seen. Instead, it showed up just a few years after Oumuamua and Borisov, both much smaller. That's not random chance. That's not probability. That's a pattern screaming for explanation. Loeb even created a ranking system, the Loeb scale, to classify interstellar visitors. A 0 means a harmless natural rock. A 10 means full-blown alien technology. 3I Atlas? He gave it a 4. In his own words, that's like a car racing toward you with a 40% chance of collision. Too dangerous to ignore. And yet, NASA and the so-called comet experts dismissed it almost immediately. They pointed at the glowing tail, the gas emissions, the carbon dioxide. They said, see, just a comet. But what they conveniently ignored were the anomalies, details that don't fit into any natural explanation. For example, that nickel without iron I mentioned. Normally, comets spit out dust and gas that's a mixture of elements, but always with iron alongside nickel. Yet the gas around 3I Atlas, pure nickel, no iron. Exactly like industrial alloys humans manufacture. And what about its tail? Unlike every comet ever observed, instead of being blown away from the sun, its light-scattering plume was stretching toward the sun, a direct contradiction of physics as we know it. Scientists who spent decades on comets shrugged and said, well, it happens. But Loeb wasn't having it. He warned, ignoring anomalies is not science, it's dogma. Real science doesn't bury the strange, it investigates it. And make no mistake, this was strange. By this point, whispers began circulating in the media and on podcasts. Was this a comet, or was it something more, maybe even a mothership? Reports suggested it would pass near Mars on October 3rd and then skim by Jupiter in 2026. Perfect opportunities for reconnaissance. If it were natural, sure, that could be coincidence. But if it were designed, then its path almost looked intentional, like it was visiting major planets for a reason. And here's where things get downright unsettling. Loeb himself admitted that if this were technological, the object could maneuver when closest to the sun, a classic gravitational assist, the exact same trick we use to slingshot spacecraft deeper into space. If 3i Atlas makes an unexpected move at that moment, forget coincidence, forget comet, we're talking about contact. And what happens if it doesn't come alone? What if it releases smaller probes along the way? Loeb raised that possibility too, that mini probes could be deployed, piggybacking off the mothership to quietly infiltrate Mars, Jupiter, even Earth itself. So let me put it bluntly, this isn't just about one object in space, it's about the possibility that alien technology has already entered our solar system and is actively surveying us. And still, the establishment rolls its eyes. They call Loeb an alarmist. They accuse him of chasing headlines. But look closer, and the hypocrisy is glaring. The very same astronomers who dismiss 3i Atlas as just a comet are the ones who ridiculed Oumuamua's unexplained acceleration back in 2017. Time and again, they've chosen comfort over curiosity, brushing away anomalies as if pretending they don't exist will make them vanish. But here's the truth. Anomalies don't vanish. They accumulate. And when you stack them all together, the picture is undeniable. Something about 3i Atlas is deeply, profoundly wrong. Now, according to Avi Loeb, the orbit of 3i Atlas was aligned to within 5 degrees of the plane of our solar system. That doesn't sound like much until you realize the odds of this happening by chance are about 1 in 500. 1 in 500. Imagine rolling a die with 500 sides, and it just happens to land perfectly on the number you least expect, on the very path where Earth and its neighboring planets are lined up like targets on a shooting range. Coincidence or design? NASA would have you believe it's the former, but Loeb makes a haunting analogy. If you see a car coming down the street at high speed and it's on a path that intersects with your body, do you shrug and say, "Oh well, random"? No, you pay attention, because the risk, however small, could mean the end. Now consider this. October 3rd, 2025. 3i Atlas will make its closest pass to Mars. This is not fringe speculation. It's the calculated trajectory. And then, in March 2026, it swings near Jupiter. Why does that matter? Because those are the two planets most often used as gravitational slingshots by human spacecraft. If an alien probe wanted to survey or maneuver deeper into our solar system, this would be the exact path it would take. And yet mainstream astronomers shrug. They dismiss it as luck. But luck doesn't explain what happened next. When the James Webb Space Telescope measured the object, it detected something shocking. Despite the fact that 3i Atlas was visibly evaporating, shedding around 150 kilograms of material every single second, its path didn't change at all. That's like watching a rocket firing out one side and somehow not moving even a fraction of an inch. The only way that's possible is if the object is so massive that the evaporation has no effect whatsoever. Loeb calculated the lower limit, 33 billion tons, minimum, potentially up to 10 times that, which means the solid core could be anywhere from 5 kilometers across to nearly 50 kilometers. That's not a comet, that's a fortress in space. To put it in perspective, the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs was estimated at around 10 kilometers in size. 3i Atlas could be up to 5 times larger, and yet NASA wants you to believe it's just a rock. Just another icy traveler, no different than the billions of comets already catalogued. But there's one massive problem with that narrative. We shouldn't even be seeing this object in the first place. Loeb himself calculated that, based on how interstellar matter is distributed, the chance of an object this massive wandering into our neighborhood in the span of a decade is so low it borders on impossible. If the laws of probability are right, we should have seen 100,000 small Oumuamua-sized objects before one this gigantic. Instead, the reverse happened. We saw the small ones first, and now this skyscraper-sized visitor. How do you explain that? Unless, of course, it wasn't random, unless it was sent. The anomalies pile up further when you examine its composition. As mentioned earlier, telescopes picked up an unusually high level of carbon dioxide in its gas plume, 87% by mass, compared to just 4% water. Comets in our solar system almost always release water vapor when heated by the sun, but not this one. This one looks manufactured, like it was assembled from material foreign to our solar neighborhood. Even stranger, the nickel without iron discovery stands as one of the most chilling anomalies. The only time we've ever seen that ratio before? In industrial alloys created by humans. On Earth, nickel is almost always bound up with iron in natural ores. You don't find pure nickel floating around in the wild, unless, of course, it's been refined. So when 3i Atlas began shedding gas with nickel but no iron, Loeb raised the obvious question: are we looking at a natural comet or a machine shedding engineered material? Now here's the part that should have made headlines worldwide. In July and August of 2025, telescopes noticed something that defied all cometary logic. Instead of a tail streaming away from the sun, as every comet in history has done, this one had scattered light stretching toward the sun, 10 times longer than it was wide, pointing in the opposite direction of every other comet tail we've ever observed. Astronomers waved it off. Loeb didn't. He called it what it was, an anomaly. And anomalies, when stacked one on top of another, start to tell a story. By this point, the media had started to pick up the controversy. Podcasters, UFO researchers, and journalists latched onto Loeb's work, either to praise it or ridicule it. One of the harshest critics was investigative reporter Ross Coulthart, who accused Loeb of making a huge song and dance over limited evidence, but Loeb hit back, pointing out that Coulthart was not a scientist, and more importantly, that his entire dismissal hinged on ignoring the very data that screamed, "Something's wrong here." Loeb has published 9 scientific papers on 3I Atlas in just the last few months. 9, each outlining different anomalies, each laying out testable predictions, each one building the case that this object cannot be casually lumped in with just another comet. Meanwhile, critics like Coulthart rely on consensus from the same establishment scientists who dismissed Oumuamua's unexplained acceleration 8 years ago. It's the same story every time. When faced with the unknown, the establishment clings to the familiar, and in doing so, they risk missing the single most important discovery in human history. Because let's not mince words, if 3I Atlas is artificial, then we are not alone, and worse, we may already be under surveillance. Now imagine the implications of that. Imagine the Pentagon or NASA quietly realizing that a Manhattan-sized probe is cruising through our backyard, potentially carrying smaller vehicles. Imagine the panic behind closed doors. Already, Loeb has admitted that if this thing maneuvers near the sun, the stock market could crash overnight. The very notion that alien technology is here now would trigger a global meltdown. And yet, as of today, most people don't even know the name 3I Atlas. It's being kept quiet, buried in technical journals and niche YouTube discussions, while the public is distracted by politics and celebrity scandals. But make no mistake, the truth is there, hidden in plain sight. So why does this matter to you? Because unlike distant exoplanets or hypothetical radio signals, this isn't happening light years away. It's happening here, now. This object is on a timeline, with milestones we can watch unfold in real time. October 3rd, 2025, close pass by Mars. October 29th, 2025, closest approach to the Sun. March 16th, 2026, flyby of Jupiter. 2027, potential crossing near Earth's path. That's not decades from now. That's not some distant future. That's in the next 18 months, which means by the time you're watching this, the countdown has already begun. And here's the terrifying question no one wants to answer. What happens if it changes course? Because if 3I Atlas is a machine, and all the anomalies point in that direction, then we're not just dealing with a rock. We're dealing with intelligence. And intelligence makes choices. It maneuvers. It decides whether to pass by quietly or to engage. If it does, we may be looking at humanity's first direct contact, not with microbes on Mars, not with a faint radio signal from a distant star, but with a structure the size of Manhattan moving at interstellar speeds right here in our solar system. And if that doesn't terrify you, you're not paying attention. NASA hid the Mars photos of 3I Atlas. What are they covering up? October 3rd, 2025, a date that should have changed history. The day 3I Atlas, the Manhattan-sized interstellar object, made its closest approach to Mars. For scientists, this was the golden opportunity, a chance to capture images at a resolution 100 times sharper than Hubble. NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, armed with the high-rise camera, had the object in its sights. The world was supposed to see what no one had ever seen before, the surface of an interstellar visitor. But when the day came, something strange happened. The cameras worked, the data was collected, and then silence. Where were the images? Why weren't they released? Days passed, then weeks. Rumors began, swirling online, that the images showed structures, not jagged rock, not ice, but straight lines, sharp edges, patterns that screamed design. Whispers suggested the data was locked down at NASA, that security clearances were suddenly invoked, that not even some of the imaging team had access to the full resolution files. Officially, nothing unusual was reported. Unofficially, leaks suggested otherwise. Let's be clear, this isn't paranoia. NASA has a history of withholding or delaying data under the guise of verification. Remember the discovery of water on Mars? That evidence was known for years before it was presented to the public. Remember the fossilized microbes in Martian meteorites? The story was debated in secret before the press conference was allowed. So, when we ask, why haven't we seen the 3I Atlas close-ups? It's not conspiracy, it's precedent. Even Avi Loeb hinted at this in interviews, noting that government agencies often act like gatekeepers of information, filtering what the public sees. And in the case of something as explosive as alien technology, the incentive to suppress is overwhelming. Think about it. How do you tell the world that a Manhattan-sized probe may be drifting near Mars, that it might be a mothership capable of releasing smaller vehicles, that it could be watching us? The panic would be uncontrollable. And yet, even without the official images, evidence was piling up. Amateur astronomers monitoring the sky claimed to notice subtle changes in brightness as the object passed Mars. Some said the light curve didn't match a natural comet's rotation. Others noted flashes, brief, inexplicable subtle bursts of light, like reflections off metallic surfaces. NASA said nothing. The European Space Agency stayed quiet. But behind the scenes, the Pentagon wasn't silent. Reports surfaced of emergency meetings between military generals and naval admirals, coincidentally timed with the Mars encounter. Officially, these were routine briefings. Unofficially, many speculated they were about one thing: what to do if 3I Atlas changes course. And here's the unnerving part. Loeb himself warned that the moment to watch was when it reached perihelion, its closest approach to the Sun, October 29, 2025. That's where gravitational assists are strongest, where a technological object could use the Sun to slingshot itself into a new trajectory. So when October 29th came, the world held its breath. And once again, silence. No press release. No dramatic announcements. Just vague statements that observations are ongoing. But buried in obscure data repositories, some analysts claimed to find hints of an unexpected shift. Tiny deviations in the trajectory. Too small to confirm, but too large to ignore. If true, that would mean only one thing. 3I Atlas moved under its own power. The US government has long treated unidentified aerial and space phenomena as matters of national security, not science. Security. That means the data isn't public property. It's classified. And classified means only one thing. Someone, somewhere, decided the truth was too dangerous for you to know. Maybe the images showed nothing unusual. Maybe it was just another rock. But if that were the case, wouldn't NASA have rushed to release them? Wouldn't they have silenced critics like Loeb by proving him wrong with undeniable photos? Instead, they stayed quiet. And silence, in cases like this, speaks louder than any press release. The implications ripple outward. If 3I Atlas is natural, we're still faced with a once-in-10,000-year scientific opportunity. If it's artificial, then we're dealing with something beyond comprehension, a visitor from another civilization. In either case, hiding the data is unacceptable, and yet that's exactly what seems to be happening. So what are they hiding? Straight edges, hollow cavities, geometries too precise to be random, or something worse, evidence that the object isn't just passing through, but waiting. And here's the darker possibility. What if 3I Atlas already deployed smaller probes, and we missed them? Loeb warned that mini-probes could detach and quietly move into planetary orbits, even into Earth's atmosphere. He wasn't being sensational, he was being logical. A massive mothership doesn't need to make contact itself. It only needs to drop off reconnaissance devices. Think about UFO sightings. Think about the sudden spike in unidentified anomalous phenomena reports around Earth in recent years. Could these be connected? Could 3I Atlas have already seeded the solar system with surveillance craft? It sounds outrageous until you realize that's exactly what we would do. If humanity sent a probe to another star system, wouldn't we release smaller scouts to gather data on each planet? Wouldn't we disguise them to look natural? Wouldn't we stay hidden until the moment was right? So why assume aliens would act any differently? 3I Atlas is releasing probes. Shocking truth about alien motherships. March 16, 2026, the day 3I Atlas swept past Jupiter. On paper, this was just another milestone in its interstellar journey. In reality, it was the moment that sent shivers through defense circles worldwide, because Jupiter wasn't just a random stop on its path. Jupiter is the perfect fuel station. Every space agency knows this. For decades, we've used Jupiter's gravity to slingshot probes deeper into the solar system. Voyager, Galileo, Cassini, even the New Horizons mission to Pluto. Jupiter is the ultimate launch pad, and if an alien probe wanted to reposition itself or deploy smaller craft, this would be the place to do it. Loeb said it himself.
If it's technological, it might maneuver when it comes close to the sun. That's the point along the path where you get the most benefit from the gravitational assist of the sun. That's where when we launch a spacecraft that we want to boost in speed, we time the boosts when the object is closest to the sun. And so if 3I Atlas is technological, there might be a maneuver.
Now replace Sun with Jupiter, and the stakes only multiply. Because near Jupiter, 3I Atlas had an audience, NASA's Juno spacecraft, one of the only machines in human history that could get a front row seat to whatever unfolded. And here's the chilling detail. Juno could have intercepted the object, if only it had enough fuel left. Loeb even wrote a paper showing that with its original reserves, Juno could have flown right up to 3I Atlas. But by 2026, too much had been spent. Instead, Juno could only watch from a distance. So what did it see? Officially, almost nothing. NASA released bland statements about continued monitoring, no anomalies, no surprises, just another icy visitor. But unofficially, whispers emerged of unexpected radio emissions, faint but structured, detected during the flyby, signals that didn't match natural background noise. Some claimed they were dismissed as instrument glitches. Others suggested they were encrypted transmissions, deliberate communications bouncing between the object and somewhere else. Is that true? We may never know. But ask yourself, if NASA had proof of signals from an interstellar object, would they announce it? Or would they lock it down as the single most classified piece of data in history? This is where the story leaves the realm of astronomy and enters geopolitics, because by 2026, whispers weren't confined to scientists and UFO enthusiasts. Congress was asking questions. Defense officials were holding briefings. Representatives like Anna Paulina Luna weren't just curious, they were demanding action. And behind closed doors, military planners were drafting contingency scenarios. What if 3I Atlas changes course toward Earth? What if it deploys probes in orbit? What if it turns hostile? These weren't sci-fi hypotheticals. These were real questions being asked in secure rooms, with generals and intelligence officials present. And here's the truth no one wants to say out loud: there is nothing we could do. Loeb pointed out that 3I Atlas is traveling at up to 100 kilometers per second, 3 times faster than the fastest rocket ever launched. There is no intercept, no defense. If it wanted to approach Earth, it could, and we'd be as powerless as ants watching a boot descend. That's why the government's silence makes sense. You can't admit a threat you can't control. You can't tell the public there's a Manhattan-sized object potentially under intelligent control, because panic would be instant. Markets would crash. Faith in institutions would collapse. So instead, they downplay. They call it a comet. They bury anomalies in technical reports. They mock scientists like Loeb. And all the while, they prepare quietly for the unthinkable. Because if this object isn't just a rock, then everything changes. Let's step back and ask the obvious question: why would an alien civilization send a probe here? The easy answer: reconnaissance, a survey mission. Just as we send rovers to Mars, they send probes to Earth. But consider the timing. 3 interstellar objects in less than a decade, when statistically we should see 1 every 10,000 years. Oumuamua in 2017, Borisov in 2019, and now 3I Atlas in 2025. That doesn't look random, that looks like a pattern. What if we're not just being visited, but being studied, monitored, prepared for something bigger? Loeb himself admitted the possibility.
You can imagine it releasing mini probes that are sent to the various planets. We are monitoring the entire sky at all times. And if there is anything released by 3I Atlas, we might be able to see it.
Mini probes, scouts, seeds of something larger. If that sounds far-fetched, remember, this is exactly how humans would explore another solar system. We'd send a mothership, then smaller craft to investigate each planet. It's efficient, it's logical, it's inevitable. So what does it mean if someone else is doing it to us? Here's where the story takes a darker turn. What if 3I Atlas isn't just reconnaissance? What if it's preparation? Think of history. Whenever one civilization encountered another with vastly superior technology, the result was rarely peaceful. Colonization, exploitation, erasure. That's the pattern on Earth. Why assume it would be different in space? And yet, Loeb remains cautiously optimistic. He argues that even if it is artificial, it might be a relic, a derelict craft drifting for millions of years, or it might be a peaceful probe seeking only to observe. But what if he's wrong? What if the first contact humanity faces isn't a radio signal from a distant star, but a Manhattan-sized ship already in our skies? Think about the psychology of it. We've been conditioned for decades to think of UFOs as a fringe subject, to laugh at anyone who takes them seriously. Why? Because ridicule is the best cover. The moment you laugh at something, you stop asking questions. Now apply that same ridicule to 3I Atlas. The establishment says comet, and the public shrugs. But behind the curtain, the data screams anomalies. A trajectory too fine-tuned to be random. A mass too large to explain by probability. A composition that looks engineered. A tail pointing the wrong way. A silence from NASA that makes no sense. 1 anomaly can be dismissed, 2 can be debated, but 5, 10. At what point do coincidences become evidence? By 2027, 3I Atlas is projected to cross near Earth's orbit. If it stays on track, it may pass without incident, a silent visitor, leaving more questions than answers. But if it changes course, if it slows, if it turns its attention toward us, then the world changes forever. Because at that point, denial won't be possible. The sky itself will testify, and we will have to confront confront the most terrifying question of all. Are we ready? Let's be honest, we're not. We don't have the technology to intercept. We don't have the diplomacy to unite as one species. We don't even have the humility to admit that we're not the center of the universe. And yet, whether we're ready or not, 3i Atlas is coming. It's already here. And if the anomalies are real, if the whispers are true, then history may remember 2025 to 2027, not as the years we debated comets, but as the years humanity had its first encounter. The only question is, encounter with what? A silent relic, a peaceful scout, or the harbinger of something far greater and far more dangerous? The truth may already be known by a select few, but for the rest of us, the countdown continues. Mars, the Sun, Jupiter, and finally, Earth. 3i Atlas is moving on schedule, and when it arrives, it won't matter what NASA called it. It won't matter what the critics said, because the data doesn't lie, and neither will the sky. Well, that wraps up this video. For more interesting videos like this, check out the cards on your screen.